Welcome to our 11th annual Lunar New Year's celebration. Okay, you know the drill, guys. Say hey bo. Mani baduseo. Okay, now 110 straight through. Say hey bo mani baduseo. Happy New Year. This year you'll notice that we have a new leader on our right. Inja has stepped down, and Xianju So has taken over the role of principal of Korean Language School and will be leading things out this afternoon.
I'm Sanju. I'm new principal of Korean Language School. Welcome, everybody. I started teaching in Korean Language School since 2006, but I take part as a principal last year, and so I'm very pleased to with us. And I want to send some Korean television to American students or American people or Korean Americans. Actually, the Lunar New Year's in Korea, before the Solar New Year's, the calendar are used. We usually use the Lunar New Year's calendar. So the Lunar New Year is the first day of the year. Yes, I have. And after Joseon Dynasty, every family had the Lunar New Year's ritual on the first day of the year, with the whole family members to pray Happy New Year and keep healthy and success to their ancestor and God. In the early morning of the first day of the new year, there are big party, table setting, after bowing ceremony to their grandparents and parents. All families eat together with special food. Looks like 떡국, 불고기, 잡채, and 떡, rice soup, Korean meat, and vegetable, fried vegetable rice cake, little bit different from each family. It is the starting point for New Year. I would like to share my experience and what I learned from Korea. Please take a time, take a good time, and have a year. Happy New Year.
We'd like to start off our program now. We want to make prayer from Michael Smith.
What a joy it is to see everyone growing up watching. As we open our program, let's bow our heads in prayer. Father, we thank you for this, another New Year's celebration for meeting God. You have blessed us with another year of life, prosperity, Lord. You are abundant to us, we give you thanks. And as we look forward to this coming year, we ask for your continued provision, your blessing upon us, and upon our children, that they might grow up in the knowledge of you. We pray this in your Son, Jesus' name.
Thank you. Next up, we have one of our very own Korean Connection members, Jocelyn Kindrai, and she's going to sing the Korean national anthem. She learned this at Camp Chosan, to which many of our families have gone, and we'll talk about more later. Is Jocelyn around? There you go.
동해로와 백두산이 머물
we're celebrating the start of the year of the snake. Well, I had to research this, being the internet nerd that I am. As with all other years, the year of the snake comes every 12 years. Just like last year, which was the year of the Blackwater dragon, this is the year of the Blackwater snake. The new year starts with the second new moon after the winter solstice, which is February 10th this year. That's tomorrow. But you know what? Korea is 15 hours ahead of us. That means it's already New Year's Day there, and hey, we're right on time. You may remember that last year I told you a bit about the friendly wingless Korean dragon, how it differed from the European dragons, and also about how the Blackwater dragon comes around every 60 years. Well, it turns out that this is true of the Blackwater snake as well. I learned this week that in addition to the familiar 12-year cycle of animals, rat, ox, tiger, rabbit, dragon, snake, horse, goat, monkey, dog, and pig, there's also one of 5 elements associated with the year: water, wood, fire, earth, and metal. There's also a color associated with each element, such as black with water and red with fire. This element changes every 12 years, and so it takes 60 years to go through the full cycle of colors and animals. And that helps explain why in Korea the 60th birthday is so important, because you may probably learned when our kids had their first birthday, there's really 2 birthdays that are celebrated in traditional Korean culture in a big way. That's the first birthday and the 60th. Now let's see, looking around the room, I can tell that a lot of you guys are going to be about 70 years old the next time a year of the Blackwater snake rolls around, so enjoy it. Snakes can be seen as wily masters of subterfuge, but they are not viewed as evil in traditional astrology. Rather, they are associated with long life, protection, and good fortune. Now back to first up, we'd like to update you on some of the activities that the Korean Connection Group has had in the last year. In July, for example, several of our families again went to Camp Chosan. How about this? How about everybody who has ever attended Camp Chosan, stand up. So for those families who have not yet gone there, this is a really cool program. It's up in Minneapolis. It's always the week of July 4th. Jim Chesner is going to say a little bit more about it. They've gone 3 times so far.
Yes, as Mark said, our family's been there 3 times, and we've enjoyed it every single time. What it is just a little bit north of Minneapolis, there's a Girl Scout camp where all the families meet. These families come from all over the United States, and we start out in the morning at about 9 a.m. There's an assembly. The kids break off into their groups, and they're led by Korean adoptee, typically college-age students. And they basically go off all day long, and they learn all sorts of things from Korean drumming, dance, taekwondo, singing, and things of that nature. Anything that's Korean related, they basically learn a lot about their culture. So the kids are off with Korean kids of their own age all day long. And that leaves the parents to do their own thing, and they can volunteer. Like my wife and I work in the kitchen. We make Korean food for all the kids that come. And there's all sorts of other things for the adults to do to volunteer during the day when the kids are off doing their things, as you can see in some of the pictures. But it's fun because the kids basically learn all sorts of things, and by the end of the week they put on a big show for everybody. They do taekwondo, they do dancing and drumming and so forth, and it's really a lot of fun. And what's neat also is that at the end of the day, well, basically it's for kindergarten through 11th grade. If you're kindergarten through 6, it's a day camp. You're there from 9 through 4. 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. But if you're 7th through 11th grade, it's called they can actually stay on site at this Girl Scout camp. I forget the name of that. They call it resident camp, correct. That's the kids can actually stay overnight, and they do a lot of things together. They cook together, and they have a lot of fun. So basically, what's also fun for us though, the adults, we all stay at a hotel nearby, and the adults can hang out, and the kids swim and have fun, and it's really a blast. We have a really good time. I hope that a lot of you think about it. You can go to www.campchoisan.org to find out more information. But again, it's usually over the 4th of July weekend, and it's a lot of fun. So recommend it. If you have any questions, come talk to any of us who have been there. Thanks.
Thanks, Jim. The other thing I wanted to talk about was twice last year we had a getaway weekend. We've been doing this once or twice a year for the last few years, where about a dozen families traveled down to the Racine Marriott Hotel, and thanks to Brian Wismar, we got into the governor's suite there, and along with good accommodations, they gave us complimentary breakfast in their restaurant there. The highlight for me, though, in those weekends is that we always, on Saturday night, we always head down to Asiana Restaurant in downtown Racine. And they open it up, and 30 or 40 of us converge on that restaurant and have a really great Korean meal. Most recently, we did it in November. I even have a picture of the November group at Asiana Restaurant. Very good. We didn't even practice this. Okay, now for the rest of the fun programming that we have. Jocelyn got us started early on. The first group that we have up is a fusion pop dance performance by the group P9 Tempo, featuring Nabi, Sean, and RJX. No side, sorry.
Hi everyone, we're P9 Tempo. We are actually a dance-based group out of Milwaukee, and we're asked to come here to perform today. We're going to be doing 2 songs today, one To Anyone, I Don't Care, and Miss A, I Don't Need a Man. And we're just here today just to perform K-pop. For those who don't know what K-pop is, it's basically Korean popular music. It's a fusion of all different genres of music together. And what makes it, I think, stand out is just the interesting concepts they come up with, as well as the choreography that they do too. And I think, like we all pretty much probably know Gangnam Style. I think that's how K-pop is remaining so popular, is just with the dance. So we'll be performing for you guys. Hope you guys enjoy. Hey Playboy, I don't care 그만할래 네가 어디에서 원했던 이제 좀만 사면 안 알게 지켜줄래 이제와 우고부고 매력이지만 Cause I don't care I don't care Cause I don't care I don't care
We are pleased to have Dr. Nicholas Hartlep join us this year. Dr. Hartlep was born in Korea and adopted in the United States, just like many of you. He's currently a professor at Illinois State in Normal, Illinois. Previously has taught at our own University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, as well as in public schools in Minnesota, Wisconsin, and even Ecuador. He has published 3 books and is currently working on books 4 and 5. His family was, he's married to his wife Stacy, has kids Chloe, Ph.D, Avery, Hannah, and Olivia, or Uni. They're celebrating their own Lunar New Year in Bloomington at their own church, and couldn't join us today, but I'd like to welcome Dr.
Before I share my thoughts with you all, I just had to comment. Having lived here only 6 months ago, I know Milwaukee pretty well, and where we live, we have no snow. So when I drove up to Milwaukee, I noticed all of the snow. It's much more beautiful than in Bloomington. We have no snow. So with that being said, the title of my talk today is The Importance of Cultural Citizenship, Not Color Blindness, and the Need to Support Adoptees in Their Own Self-Empowerment. Thank you for inviting me to this wonderful celebration today. Not only is it a special event to me because I get to share my thoughts with you about transracial adoption, but it is also my first Solal or Korean New Year. My family was unable to make the drive with me today, but I have driven from Bloomington, Illinois for this momentous meeting. I'm not in the habit of writing speeches beforehand and delivering them verbatim, but today I felt obligated to do so. Not only to honor everyone's time, I notice we have a tight schedule today, but also because adoption is an emotional thing for me, and I do not want to be sidetracked into the non-essentials. So today I would like to share some of my thoughts about adoption, as well as tell you all a little bit about my journey as an adoptee. As previously mentioned, I was adopted from Seoul when I was 18 months old. And here are pictures of me. This is a picture of my foster mother, and these 2 pictures are the youngest ones that I have of myself, and the only ones that I have of myself in Korea as a young boy. Being an adopted person has been incredibly demanding for me. Interpersonal relationships have been difficult for me to maintain, and trust and fear of disappointing others has been a constant shadow that has followed me during my life. As a child growing up in white America, I did not feel as though I was ever Korean. My adoptive parents were white, like many of you in the audience today, and as a result of this reality, most of my friends were white, middle class, and had little understanding of what being Asian in America entailed. Especially because here in the United States, diversity is commonly understood to be in black and white terms. I recall when I was young, perhaps 8 years of age, noticing that I was not white like my adoptive parents. I asked my mother why I had black hair and why my eyes were slanted when hers were not. She was blonde and blue-eyed, just so you know. I asked my adopted mother if she was my real mother, to which she responded resolutely, yes. In my heart, I knew she wasn't really my mother, and no matter how hard I tried, Her liberal, at times colorblind, and many I love yous were never enough. Why didn't she say this instead? Nicholas, if you're asking me if you came from my body, then the answer is no. I am real, but your Korean mother is very real too. And I think she probably does look like you. My comment and doubt would have been a great opportunity for her to pull out my adoption file and go over whatever information it had on my biological mother. The fact is, adoptive parents should not react to their child's questions in fear, because doing so might make the child stop talking and stop wondering. We do not want to make our children periods. We want them to be question marks. Do you all get what I'm trying to say? We want them to ask questions. That is healthy and it is good. If my mother had only known the tremendous amount of victimization, bullying, and microaggressions that I experienced in my day-to-day life, in school and outside of school, she may have done things differently. But that is not the story I'm sharing with you today, parents. For many children growing up, it's almost a taboo subject because we have a hard time talking about what's going on with our feelings and what's happening in schools. In an effort to remain positive, given that this event is one of a celebratory occasion, I thought it would be best if I shared an honest-to-truth story. Therefore, today I would like to talk to you about an incredible life-changing event that positively impacted my outlook on life as an adult adoptee and the parent of 3 young girls. My story today is one of my own self-empowerment. My story begins in 2011 when finishing my doctorate. I came across a book that changed my life forever. The book was, got a pencil, write it down, Dance of Identities, Korean Adoptees and Their Journey Toward Empowerment. The book's power emanated from the fact that the author was a Korean adoptee who, like me, was a male academic. John Palmer, the book's author, shared his thoughts and feelings openly and honestly. Palmer talked about how and why he needed to learn more about himself and how his adoption journey progressed, eventually leading to his own self-empowerment as an adopted person. As a consequence of reading Palmer's book, I was brave enough to engage in a biological search for my Korean family. In what can only be described as a miracle, it took less than a year. I was finally notified officially that my biological father was found and he would like to meet me soon. And I wrote that all in capital letters with exclamation marks because he was so enthusiastic to meet me. We were reunited shortly thereafter, and our first reunion occurred in St. Paul, Minnesota, not in Seoul, as many might envision. My story gets better, I know, right? Because as an adoptee who was beginning to feel more empowered after this event, I applied and received a scholarship that paid for my plane ticket to and lodging while in Korea. The first trip home program was the program in which I participated, which was run by GOAL, or GOAL stands for Global Overseas Adoptees Link. The life-changing event that I prefaced in the opening of this speech was this first trip home, back to Seoul. My trip to Korea really changed my perspective. As Korean adoptees, where is our home? Was my adopted mother right to say that she was my real mother? Am I an American, Korean American, or all three? As adoptees, why do we feel guilty when we want to find our biological parents? And related, why do adopted parents sometimes, not always, feel ambivalent when their son or daughter displays interest in engaging in a birth family search? I'm convinced, not because research or anyone else tells me to, that cultural citizenship is vital for the health and well-being of an adoptive family. What do I mean by cultural citizenship? Well, surely this is a cultural citizenship meeting, and I really thank you all for being here. This is very important to be here. What do I mean by cultural citizenship? Well, my adoptive mother, without hesitation, responded that she was my real mother. Could this be possible? As a child, I could not articulate it at the time, but it was as if she adopted me and I adapted to her. She and my adoptive father had never been to South Korea, and they knew very little about Korean culture. I have no memory of my adoptive parents cooking Korean food, and they did not work to learn the language. In fact, paradoxically, I was encouraged to learn Spanish, not Korean. Entonces podemos hablar en español cualquier cosa y hablaremos sobre cualquier. So you get the picture. Cultural citizenship, as I have described in my writing that is published in the Korean Quarterly, does not simply mean food and festival celebrations of Korean culture. No, 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 no. Cultural citizenship means that as the parents of Korean children, white adoptive parents must be connoisseurs of what it means to be Korean. Let me explain. This requires getting involved in cultural or educational groups that will educate you about the Korean culture, something that you are all doing here today. So again, I thank you. Post-adoption services are another resource adoptive parents need to access regularly. Becoming a cultural citizen for your children also means that as a white parent, your racial and cultural identity is different from your Korean child's. In order to make up for this difference, it requires behavioral changes. For example, when your child brings up race, you need to talk about it and be honest. It means that if your child does not bring up issues of race, you must be brave and break the silence. Do not worry about appearing racist, because by not talking about racial differences, you are being racist. In fact, parents of all minority kids need to talk about the realities of racism. Why? Because Asian Americans are not immune from it, nor are Korean adoptees. It's not simply something black people experience in the United States. Becoming a cultural citizen also means that you are not helping and you are not learning if you don't actively seek out Koreans for assistance in raising your Korean adopted children. Transracial adopted parents need to move outside of their comfort level in terms of their normal social interactions. If the parents are white, this means that they need to gain and build friendships with people of color, especially Koreans. Lastly, literacy in the Korean culture is vital for adoptees. What hurts me a great deal is the fact that I can speak Spanish fluently, but not Korean, something that I'm learning right now. If my adoptive parents only recognize the fact that language is cultural capital, and cultural capital is important for adoptees' own self-empowerment, my story might be different. Now, do you remember this woman? My foster mother? Well, 25 years later, on the First Trip Home program, I had a chance to meet her again 25 years ago. 25 years later. Same place. Same physical building, same woman. I'm the same. The chair is actually the same. Now, I wrote a poem about her that I'd like to read to you all. The red chair stood still. 25 years ago, I sat on her lap in the adoption agency, and on November 7, 2011, I sat on her lap again on the same red chair. The chair is still red. I cannot believe how much I have changed, yet she and my tear-stained heart remain. The red chair represents pain for me. This heartache has not changed, and the agonizing feeling of abandonment remains. Meeting my foster mother and sitting on the red chair was bittersweet. Sweet that she loved me, but painful and bitter because I was forced to leave her side once again. The red chair screams to me, how many more Korean children must go? How many lives will be trafficked overseas? And now, in this short period of time together, I believe that we've come full circle. I opened by saying that this was my first solo, and I just closed by sharing that I think it is important that adoptive parents become cultural citizens for their children. I'm so proud to learn more about and to celebrate Korean New Year's with all of you. I'm also extremely humbled that the organizers of this event would allow me to share what's on my heart and also in my head. I would like to officially end by emphasizing that if there are any Korean adoptees in the audience today who have considered searching for their biological family, but have not voiced this desire for fear of reprisal, you need to be brave and honest with yourself and your family. Adoptive parents, biological searches are things that, if not brought up, should be. You should also be asking your adopted child semi-regularly about his or her experiences inside and outside of school. And as a former teacher and now as a professor of education, this is very important. Bullying is on the rise, and Korean adoptees, we're not immune from being bullied. Adoptees, I wish you all of you in the room, well on your own journey of self-empowerment. I would like to wish adoptive parents in the room good luck as they become cultural citizens for their children, and if you already are, continue to grow in your knowledge and understanding. As I mentioned previously, if my adoptive mother had only known the bullying and harassment I experienced in my day-to-day life, she may have parented me differently. That's for a different time, a different story. Parents, you don't want your child to have colorblind experiences like I had, and all of you here, clearly, you're cultural citizens. So again, fantastic job. This is why I shared my experience and story with you today. Thank you also very much for your attention and empathy. Happy Solo. Thank you.
Next up is perhaps my, thanks to Dr. Hartlep. Next up is perhaps my favorite annual performance that we see, as Grandmaster Yun has brought his demo team here once again to perform their Taekwondo for us.
Hello everyone. 새해 복 많이 받으세요. We are the World Martial Arts Academy demonstration team. We're from New Berlin, Wisconsin, and we're very happy to be here. And in the far back corner is the founder of World Martial Arts Academy, Grandmaster Taehyun Yoon. Today we will be performing a Korean martial arts called Taekwondo. Please enjoy. 시작!
Oh, we needed those sunglasses on that. Next up, this might be even better, guys. A Korean drumming performance by the Garam Milwaukee Korean Drum Group. Sadie Chang is the leader of this group. You may remember her from last year when she instructed several of our Korean Connection kids and led them in a performance here. Songju is also a member of this group, but she's not joining them today.
Happy New Year, everybody. 새해 복 많이 받으세요. Thank you, Sanju. Thank you, Anne and Mark. Thank you for all your work in Korea Connection. I'm so happy to be able to work with you guys, our group, and so excited to celebrate the New Year. So I hope you enjoy our performance. Thanks so much.
Holy smokes. That was really good. Well, perhaps our highlight today is that we are joined by the Chicago Children's Choir. Little O.L. Korea with me, Rob Choi, conducting, and Hai-In Lee on piano. Let's give them a big welcome.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
can